In this video, I want to show you the one design element that can take any of your designs to the next level, even if you have no skills whatsoever. The answer to that is fonts. What are fonts? What are popular fonts here in 2023? And how can you utilize them and where can you find them? Hey everyone, if you and I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Nick. I am a youth pastor in the Dallas-Fort Worth DFW Metroplex area, and the reason that I can say this is because when I started, this was what some of my early designs looked like. I was a youth pastor. I've been a youth pastor now for 12 years, and I had no idea how to do design or graphic design, and I wouldn't even really classify myself now as a graphic designer, but with time and reps and the utilization of fonts, I have gotten, I think, a lot better than some of these, because these are some of the ones now that I've most recently produced and created. And so I would love to invite you to come along for this journey as we explore what different fonts are, the reason why this matters, and how you can utilize them in your church and how you can access them for free in most cases. And if you're wondering, like, why would this even matter, I want to encourage you to check out this video that I dropped last week, which is saying why every single youth ministry in America and the world, frankly, needs a strong digital and social media presence. It's a big deal. Gen Z and Gen Alpha are spending the majority of their times on their phones. So if we as youth pastors and ministers of the gospel want to enter into their space where they are, then we need to know what we're doing. And one key element to that is design. And so in this video, we are going to go ahead and be looking at some different designs. All the links will be available for you in the description, as well as at our website, hybridministry.xyz. This episode is /062. It will also have full transcripts. And so even if you have no design skills, I want to encourage you to hang with us to the end of this video, because I'm going to give you 3 hacks to help you level up your design skills, especially with fonts, all the way at the end of the video. We're going to go ahead and dive in, so let's get this thing started. Well, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. We're going to be talking about fonts today, and one of the reasons why is I just got a brand new resident at my job. He is with me and with our team for the next year. And one of the key things that we wanted to level him up on is design, video editing, Photoshop skills, all the things that I spend a lot of time doing. My boss was hoping to free up some of my time. And so I shot some of those tutorials. If you remember, the Premiere Pro, YouTube Shorts, and Adobe Photoshop tutorials, shot some of those just a couple weeks ago and dropped those, and he's been learning through those and some other means. But one of the questions he asked me is, he's like, where do you get your fonts? And that's one of the very first just foundational things when it comes to graphic design, is you'll realize that what's standard and installed on most computers, whether you have Windows or Mac, is just not going to level it up. So great typography can really elevate any design. Meanwhile, mediocre or mid-level typography is going to tank and submarine a lot of designs, and just not going to look as good as it could, or as good as maybe it should. And so one of the very, very key and most basic foundational elements that can really change just about any design is elevating your font game. And you can get so many fonts for free on the internet. We've linked a million of them down in the description or over on the show notes. So go and check those out if that's something that you need and are interested in, or even just want to explore a little bit more. But at a basic foundational level, let's talk about what even the types of fonts are. So there are 5 basic fonts, and today we're going to look at 3 of them. Talk about 3 of them, talk about what is common and what's popular here in 2023. And like I said, I'm going to link to some articles that will then further link you out to even go get some of those fonts. Some are paid and premium fonts, others are free. And then of course you can always find knockoffs. A very common font out there is Gotham, which used to be very expensive. And then Google invented a font called Montserrat. That's at least how I say it. You may pronounce it differently. And they're very similar. Montserrat was free and Gotham cost thousands of dollars. And so everyone just went the Montserrat route instead, just as a way to kind of get a Gotham knockoff. So there are, like I said, 5 basic classifications of fonts, or typefaces as some people call them. And those 5 types are serif fonts, sans serif fonts, script, monospaced, and display. So let's dive in first to what a serif font is. Okay, so what is a serif font? Serif fonts are probably the most common or most classic types of fonts. You have a fair bit of them probably already installed on your computer. How you can identify a serif font is they have little feet or little kind of decorative stems on the bottom of each of the font typefaces. It can be difficult sometimes to read on computer screens, especially if the font is small, but most brands or people are going to be using serif fonts in order to achieve a more classic or elegant type of feel with their brand. So according to typewolf.com, these are the top 10 most popular or most common serif fonts that you can use in your design today. The first one is OGG, and it looks like this. It's just a very classic, very thin serif font. The next one is Times New Roman. Shout out back to high school and writing essays in Times New Roman. We all know this one. The third one they would say is Caslon. The fourth one is Garamond. I remember my pastor used to use Garamond all the time when I was getting started in ministry. That's how I remember it. Freight text looks very similar and classic to some of the other ones that we've talked about so far. GT Super's got a little bit more girth, a little bit more beef to it. We got the TIMECODES text. We have Self-Modern, which is a little bit more sleek and designy. We got the GT Spectra. And then finally, we have Editorial News, which in my mind mirrors and rivals a newspaper. So again, just think very classic, think very elegant. If you're watching here on YouTube, you'll notice just how like some of these look, and they're good, but if that's all you're working with, it can get a little bit boring. And so you may go back to this in a design type of setting if you're like looking for something that's a little bit more, like I said, classic, pulling in like a different era, so to speak. And so if you're a youth pastor, you may be doing a series on something of like an olden times or newspaper or something like that. Serif fonts are great with that. The other thing is you can pair fonts together. So you may do a serif and a script, or a serif and a sans serif. And so we'll dive into what those other fonts look like. But like I said, you can achieve most of these for free, and you can download all kinds of different ones onto your machine. And so if you're watching on YouTube, you can see these flying in across the screen. If you are watching on YouTube, I'd love to invite you to subscribe, like, share a rating. That would be amazing, and maybe even consider sharing this with a friend who needs to see it. Now let's dive into the sans serif fonts. Okay, so sans serif gets its name, right? Sans meaning no, and serif meaning serif, so not a serif font. So basically, if a serif font has the little tails or little decorative strokes, a sans serif just doesn't. And so honestly, it's pretty easy to identify the difference between the two. Sans serif have become a little bit more modern here recently and used, in my opinion, quite a bit more frequently. They're used often for simple and clean and really easy to read, especially on computers type of designs. And so the 23 most common fonts, according to looka.com, that are used now, that are classic, and many of these, like I said, are free. So link in the description to this article, you can go grab some of them. But we have the Helvetica Now font, which is a great font. You also have Proxima Nova. And one of the things I like about this one is they have a really heavy weight, and you can also go a lot lighter. So the comparison of those two different weights of your font can really pop on a design. You have the Futura font, Public Sans. You also have Jam Grotesque, which has a really good, clean, thin version. You have VVD S50s. You have the 1955 font. You have the Lero Soft. You have Open Sans, which is just a very classic. Probably you have something very similar already installed on one of your computers. Larway, which has a lot more variation and is a lot more interesting, but is probably not something you want to like type of paper with, right? You got Villain. You got Code Next, which this one right here looks like something I would love to use. I love big, thick, heavy, grotesque fonts. Monaco, Spacia, which has got a clean kind of rounded look to it. Ninja, which has got some tighter, like more jagged edges, looks really cool. Be good for like a video game or something. Inner Sans, Innovate, which looks like it's got just a lot of different variations. Extatia, Visby, Gilmer Sans, Nexa, Canalus Soft, and Lato. I used to use Lato all the time. I actually remember there was a game on Download Youth Ministry called Taylor Swift or Lamentations, and they used Lato, and I used it all of the time to like make a version of it, and then I just started adopting it as one of my primary main design fonts back when I was getting started. So that's how I remember, and that's what I think about with Lato. So San Serif fonts are great options. They're very common. It's what most churches are probably using. And one of the nice things too about them is they offer, like I'm looking right here at the Lato font, it has regular, hairline, thin, light, medium, semi-bold, bold, heavy, black, italic, hairline italic, thin italic, light italic, medium italic, semi-bold, bold italic, heavy italic, black italic. So you compare like a black italic with like just a regular as like a two worded design, right? Like if you were doing like overcoming sin, overcoming big, bold, italic, and then sin, maybe smaller, maybe hairline, right? Or sin could even be like shrunken and like center aligned, and you could make that like a serif font, right? So the pairing of designs is what's really key. But this next one is really the one, in my personal opinion, that can take a design from good to great. And so let's dive in and look at what script fonts can do for you. All right, so script fonts, you probably know this. It just looks cursive, right? There's two kind of basic kinds of script fonts. There's the like classic or elegant looking script font, think wedding invitations, and then there's the casual sort of script font. And this is personally one of my favorite pairings, taking a good serif font, the ones without the tails, like a Lato or like a Montserrat, which wasn't even mentioned in the last article, but is a great font, and pairing that then with a great looking, cool looking script font. And that script font, whether you go like casual, can kind of elevate you to like a more like casual, chill level, or more elegant can take you to a little bit more classic looking, but saying like a serif with a script font, and then you can use that cursive font or that script font, which has strokes and peaks and all kinds of things in its lettering, to go over top of an font beneath it, or above it, I should say. And so according to looka.com, again, we're going to look at this article. This is the best script fonts here in 2023, and they're broken up into 3 different categories. So we're going to be looking at retro cursive, handwriting cursive, elegant cursive, and brush cursive. I meant to say 4 categories, not 3. I'm a youth worker. I'm not good at math. I just help teenagers find Jesus. So let's look at some of these examples. We have the Dakota Motors. That looks like, you got like a little bit of like a vintage looking font with, motorcycles and cars and stuff like that. We have the Broadleaf font, which is just, I really like what that one looks like. It looks a little bit, baseball-y. You got the Menarda font, which reminds me of Save Big Money at Menards, but I really like what that one looks like. It's looking really cool. You got the Rampage monoline font. That one looks great. It's very similar to that second one that we looked at, the Broadleaf font. And then you got the Roxana font. That's got a little bit more retro kind of 80s vibes to it. And then the last one here in the retro cursive font category is the Hope Sans font. And that's just got, it looks a little bit more like standard, and then it's got just like some extra kind of tails to it, okay? In the handwritten cursive fonts, one of my favorite categories is I think it just looks casual. I think it just looks cool and inviting. You got some handwritten cursive fonts. So we got the Joyex script font. You got the Balta Home font. That one looks like very like pen, like there's lightness in some of the strokes. It looks like it was written with a pen. Crystal Spears, you got that font. Aesthetic Notes, I really like what that one looks like too. The Tahu font's a little thicker, got a little bit more beef to some of its stroke there. The Billy Sight, that one looks like it was like penned by, a grandmother writing something to one of her grandkids. Blanthie, this one looks a little bit more swoopy to me. The Youth Line font, which looks, I would use that one. I think that one looks cool. And then the Palmer Lake font looks really good, really inviting to me. And then lastly here we got the With You font. So like I said, all of these links in the description. Also, what you'll find in the description is a link to my completely free ebook, which is going to give you 40 done-for-you ideas, social media post ideas. And here's the thing, a lot of social media companies out there, even like Download Youth Ministries, one of my all-time favorite companies, they give you a monthly social media pack. But the problem is it's all just a bunch of like graphics. And if that's what you're going for on social media, great. But if you want a more custom, like face on camera or just like personality with you, your youth ministry, your youth pastor, youth pastors, church staff, I have 40 ideas to help you level up your social media into a completely custom approach to it. So check that out. And what you can do is then you compare some of these font designs with some of the designs that you will then put on camera if you want to go down that editing route. Or you can also download my other free ebook, which is how to take a TikTok account from scratch and post things directly on your phone using just the editor on your phone. Very simple, very easy way. But either way, both of these ways help you become more relevant to your students in the other 6 days of the week when they're not at your church or at your youth ministry. Let's continue on with fonts. We have the Elegant Cursive font. And so we have this Writing font. I really like what that one looks like. Jane Tanis, that one looks very elegant. Gustav, I would not call these like elegant personally. This one maybe a little bit. Diary Angelique looks a little bit more wedding invitation. The other ones look a little bit more just kind of modern. Estampa, that one is that one's very like monochromatic, very very simple, very sleek. Stonington, I like that one. It's got the big long tails. And then we also have here, to round it out, we have Buttermilk. So beautiful script font there. Lastly, we're going to look at some brush cursive fonts. We have Mahodi. I almost said mahogany, but that's Mahodi. America font. The Chalum font. The Mystery Tattoo. I really like that one's got just like some weird kind of like tails on it in the middle. Weathertop typeface. Guava Yogurt. And then we have Little B. So my point is the script font, you can tell there's a lot more options there. That's because there's so much variation and so much variety to script fonts. I personally think that they just have like the ability to really, really change the feel and design of something graphically. So you can be terrible at graphic design. You can have no idea what you're doing. You can download just a basic stock image off of Google Images, unsplash.com, CMG Create, any one of those places that you can just get like some sort of background type thing. But then you can elevate your design by having some good fonts. All right. A couple of quick honorable mentions I want to give to you before we dive into those 3 hacks that can help take you from a beginner to at least someone that looks like they know what they're doing with design. Is we have the monospaced font, which is basically a fixed pitch, fixed width, non-proportional font. It's a font whose letters and characters occupy the same amount of horizontal space. In a lot of cases, you can take a serif or sans serif font and you can manipulate that, especially in a more powerful tool, say like Photoshop. And then also we have the display font, which is just a really big, broad category that can generally be used and fonts at different large sizes for things like headings, right? And they're often able to just be seen really well on things like websites and other things like that. Again, you can make just about any font feel like a display font by changing the size and making it just even bigger. Okay, so let's dive in and let's talk about the 3 hacks to level up your font game in 2023. All right, leveling up your font game. You may be getting just started completely from scratch. No idea what you're doing. You may have even made some graphics. You're like, this looks trash. It looks like some of my early on graphics, and that's okay. Everyone has to start somewhere. One of the really, really key things that happens here is repetition. Just keep doing it. What happens in youth ministry a lot of times is you start a job because you love teenagers and you want to invest in them, but then you realize, man, there's an element of other things that I never learned. I didn't go to school for graphic design. I didn't go to school for video editing, but here I am doing those things because I find all of those things important. And so the more you can just level up your font game, all you got to simply do is download these fonts, install them on your computer, and you can start using them in whatever graphics software you have, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's Photoshop. You can also just go to canva.com and you can use their pre-installed fonts. The problem is with all these different custom ones here, you're not going to be able to use those on Canva because Canva is the one that's controlling what's being used. But if you're using anything on your computer, Pages, PowerPoint, Photoshop, any of those products that or even just like Word, you can include some of these in your thing, and you can pair good font pairings, and that will help you create and establish a feel, a vibe, and even some authority in your student ministry and in your graphics. But as promised, what are those 3 hacks to level up your font game? The first one is, now that you know, keep an eye for inspiration as you go. As you're walking around, as you're at your kid's school, which is probably not going to be a spot where you're going to find inspiration, as you're at football games, as you're at professional football games, as you're at theaters, as you're at plays, as you're out at the supermarket, you will start to notice fonts and you'll start to notice how they're utilizing them. I want you to just snap a picture on your cell phone, but look for inspiration as you go, and then pull that back up, and that will help you create and craft a design for something else in the future. Another idea is, if you have a series idea, let's say like we have a series coming up in Thanksgiving time, and I have my resident try and create a graphic for it. It's called Gratitude Attitude. Who doesn't have a Thanksgiving series called Gratitude Attitude? Drop in the comments below what your Thanksgiving series is going to be called. But I was like, hey, just Google it. Google Gratitude Attitude Church series and see what you get. And that can be a great source of inspiration to just find and see what some other churches are doing. And then you can steal, borrow, mimic some of the feel, the design elements of it. And then lastly, I just want to let you know, like, you can, at any given time, you don't need to go to looka.com. You don't even need this YouTube video for some of these answers. You can say like, hey, I want a summer feeling font. Google free summer fonts. Or I want a Halloween scary type font. Google free Halloween font. You want a Thanksgiving font? Free Thanksgiving font. I want a casual font. Free casual font. You can find just about any type of feel of a font just by simply Googling it or using a tool like dafont.com. The only thing you got to be on the outlook for is if you're going to use one of these fonts in a paid moment or a paid version, because some of those are for personal use only. And if you're using them in your church or youth ministry, you're going to be fine because you're not selling any of those things. If you do choose to turn around and sell it to something like Download Youth Ministry or something like that, you're just going to want to find a font that you can use free for commercial use or purchase one. So, hey, listen, I hope that you found this video helpful. Listen, I am on the move to try and get people to utilize digital and social to help influence, disciple, and reach the next generation. So we have a complete 6-part social media framework, setting it up from scratch. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And one of the key ones is YouTube. That's that first video. So I hope that you click that, check that out. Make sure you like, make sure you rate, make sure you subscribe, and share with a friend. We are here to make digital discipleship easy and possible. Thanks for hanging out, and don't forget to stay hybrid.